My boyfriend, 33M, joked about me, 38F, being a pedophile at a dinner party because there is 5+ year age gap between us. I now have the ick. How do I salvage our relationship? My boyfriend of 3.5 years announced that I am a pedophile during a small house party. He claims it's an inside joke between us. It is not. I have no idea why he thought that telling people I'm a pedophile is okay or funny. For clarification, I am a 38F and my current boyfriend is a 33M named B. We have been together for 3.5 years. We had met a couple times prior because our families and friends roll in the same social circles, but I had been a serial monogamist for around a decade, and other than finding each other mutually attractive, nothing physical happened. No flirting, no exchange of phone numbers or kisses, absolutely nothing physically or verbally inappropriate. Keep in mind that both of us were legal adults when we first met. So on to the night in question. He very loudly proclaimed to an amalgamation of friends, family, and strangers all sitting around a dinner table that I was a pedophile and that calling me a pedo is an inside joke between us. It is not. He brought this up because he drunkenly chose to talk about our relationship despite its complete lack of relevance to the topic at hand. To preface, there is an age gap between us, roughly 5 years and 8 mo. We first met when he was 19 and I was 26. I was in a long-term, committed adult relationship with C, 22M, at the time. C was in college. I was working as a youth programs director. We cohabited and had been in a relationship for 2 years. C and I threw a house party. That is when I first met B. He was 19, loud, drunk, and I found him attractive and enthralling. We had a friendly conversation and nothing more. There was no flirting, no exchange of numbers, no physical interaction. I recall thinking he was cute and crazy, but that was it. Like I said, I was happily in a monogamous long-term relationship with C and didn't consider B as anything other than an interesting party guest. We ran into each other at random parties throughout the years, but once again, we never shared any inappropriate conversations, and our only physical interaction was maybe a, "Hello, good seeing you again," hug. A decade passed and COVID hit. I happened to be in my hometown after spending 5 years abroad, in which we were absolutely not in contact. We were both invited to a small gathering at a bar. Our friends and family social circles still ran in tandem for the most part. At the time, B was 30 and I was 36. I was single. So was he. Shots ensued. We hooked up. Within a month, we decided to move in together. Within a year, we moved to another city. Within the past year, we have talked heavily about getting married. NOV will be our 4-year anniversary, and we have both lovingly stared into each other's eyes and talked about having children and growing old together. In our years together, we have talked about our respective pasts, and with an age gap, certain, oh God, moments have happened. For example, we will be talking about senior prom and how awkward, funny, stupid we were at 18, and he will pipe up and say, "Yeah, when you were a senior, I was in 7th grade. Or I will be telling a story about my first job working retail in college, and he will say, "So while you were going to frat parties, I was a freshman in high school." It's cringe but true, and when said in that context, it's not great, and my usual response is something to the effect of, "You sweet Jesus, I don't want to think of it that way." Our age gap is not a problem for me. The majority of my long-term relationships have been with younger men. None of my previous partners made jokes about our age gaps. My relationship with B has been the largest gap. B is now 33 and I am 38. Our neighbors had some friends over for some Cinco de Mayo drinks, and when I got home from work there were about 10 people hanging out in the backyard. I knew half of them, the other half were from out of town. I strike up conversation with them, normal shit like, "How long are you in town for?" and "What do you do for work?" So here I am chatting with this woman I've known for a total of 2 hours about the similarities in our upbringing, playing competitive sports in high school and college, when B decides to loudly talk over us about how he and I first met. With the conversation redirected, all eyes on him, he recounts how we first met at a house party I threw, and I chime in that my first impression was that he was beautiful and terrifying and young and insane, but he was too young for me at the time. That's when he chose to call me a pedophile. He said that we joke all the time about how he was in elementary school while I was losing my virginity, and I'm such a pedo who's into young guys. Cue everyone's shocked faces. Awkward laughter, but mostly crickets. I absolutely refute the statements he's making and try to reiterate to the silent table that we ran into each other only in social settings for around a decade before truly re-meeting after 5 or so years of no contact whatsoever, and we were both in our 30s when began dating. At this point, the collective tension has been eased, but holy fucking shit. If I was at a dinner party and some woman joked about her boyfriend being a pedophile, I would absolutely be alarmed and most likely want nothing to do with either of them. Being a pedo is not an accusation you hurl out of nowhere, and it's insanely distasteful to joke about outside of the occasional dude. You need to shave your mustache. It's giving me creepy pedo vibes. Outright calling your partner a pedophile in a room full of old friends and new acquaintances is just childish and disturbing and insanely unnerving and gross. Like, I'm having trouble thinking about him in any sexual context now because his words and actions are that of a teenage boy, and that's f***ing gross to me. BC, I'm a grown ass woman who is not attracted to immature asshats or children. The party wrapped up pretty quick after that. I don't think I said goodbye to very many people. I pretty much fled out of shame and embarrassment. When I confronted B about it, he tried to blow it off, told me it was a joke and not a big deal. I tried to put it into perspective for him and asked how he would feel if at a social event I called him a pedo, then doubled down claiming it was an inside joke between us that he diddles kids. Well, that's not the same, he claimed. He then backed down a little and admitted it was weird and stupid, but when I kept pushing the conversation BC, I was still upset. He got aggressive and tried to darvo me, which I shot down immediately. I told him to sleep in the guest room, and I went to bed. He tried to apologize, but when I rejected his apology BC, I'm clearly very pissed off. He just got angry and tried to gaslight me, claiming, "We've joked about this before." We absolutely have not. I watch a lot of true crime. I am horrified by pedophilia. I worked with kids for several years. I would like to be a foster parent or adopt one day. All of these things, B is aware of. We have had earnest and heartfelt conversations about doing our part to help children escape from abuse. I have seriously considered volunteering as a court liaison for children in the foster care system. And here is my partner telling people I'm a pedophile BC. He's several years younger than me? Like, what in the actual I feel disgusted and I really don't know what to do here. Is this even salvageable? I'm not so sure that I can spend my life with someone who thinks that a 5-year, 8-month age gap is worthy of making pedo jokes about me at a dinner party. Has anyone else dealt with this kind of behavior? How should I move forward with this relationship? Is there a way to move past this? I'm thinking couples therapy, but is it even worth it at this point? Edit. People seem to keep getting distracted by my horrific math that is self-admittedly all over the place, so here you go. Boyfriend is 33, I am 38. The age difference between us is 5 years, 3 months, 16 days. AITAH for not telling my parents that my adopted son was my biological son until there was a financial reason to do so? My parents have never liked my oldest son, Nathaniel. He was my godson and the child of my best friend and her wife. My friend Sarah had been out and proud since she was 12. Her parents were super supportive and were the best allies I could imagine even before she told them. Sarah and I went to middle school and became friends. I had a massive crush on her until she explained she was into girls. First I was confused, then I accepted it, and our friendship changed and got stronger. My parents hated her. Not for breaking my heart or anything, just because she was gay. I told them I wasn't going to stop being friends with her, and that I would rather be friends with her than their kid if they tried to make me choose. Fortunately for my parents, Sarah and her family moved, but we stayed in contact with email and MySpace. Out of sight, out of mind for my parents. Sarah and I both applied, and we're accepted to the same college. 2 years and we moved out of dorms and got an apartment together. She was the best wing person ever. Sorry for the backstory. She met and married her wife. They needed a donor. I fit their criteria. I agreed so long as we had a contract that took any financial responsibility away from me. They agreed and I became Uncle Caden. I was in their son's life from the moment he was born. Well, not the moment. When he came out of the room, not the birth canal. I also became his father figure and godfather. We were going to tell him when he was old enough to understand. Then I met my wife and got married. She knew the whole story because I didn't want her to think I would keep such important details of my life a secret. We have 2 children together. I am LC with my parents for multiple reasons. Their homophobia is low on the list of them, if that gives you any idea how my parents are. They attended our wedding and have spent time with both of our kids. We did not deny them the opportunity to be grandparents. We just don't go out of our way to include them. Sarah and her wife passed away in a boating accident. Nate was with Sarah's parents at the time. I became his guardian and adopted him ASAP. He was 12. I make sure he sees his relatives on both of his mother's sides. I will continue to do so until he is old enough to go by himself. It is made for a confusing and bittersweet family. None of them knew I am not just his dad, but also his father. My parents, on the other hand, have always tried to exclude him. I have made it clear to them that he is my son, and I won't put up with their shit. I also didn't tell them the truth because I was afraid they would tell him before we were ready. We told Nate when he turned 16. He laughed and said he had figured it out a long time ago but was humoring me and his moms by pretending he didn't. He has always been a smartass. He also said he was more than happy with his 2 sets of grandparents and did not feel he was missing much with my folks. My wife's parents love him too. It came to a head in February. My parents received an inheritance from my grandmother passing away. They don't need the money, so they contacted me to see if they could put money into the kids' education funds. I thanked them and agreed. I told them that they could send me the money and I would split it up into all 3 accounts. Nathaniel has a good fund that we topped off since we got money from his mom's insurance. We also rented out their old house and used that money for expenses. My wife and I both work and have pretty decent accounts for our kids, but extra money won't hurt. My parents said that they only wanted me to split it 2 ways. Just my kids with my wife would be getting money. I then said thanks but no thanks. I would not be excluding one of my kids because they were terrible people. They ended up opening accounts by themselves for my kids. Nothing I can do about that. My grandparents also set up a trust fund for their descendants to draw from when they turn 18. It isn't a lot of money, but every little bit helps these days. Nate is graduating next year, so we submitted the paperwork to get him that money. My uncle is one of the trustees, and he told my parents, and they freaked out that I never told them that Nate was my kid. I take them they were assholes because they knew I adopted him, and that fact alone made him my kid. Huge argument. You know what we mean. How could you keep him from US? Blah, blah, blah. I said that for 5 years they have always behaved badly towards him. Even though he was my son, why would I include them more in his life? They are saying that they will sue for grandparents' rights. I laughed in their faces. I literally have a letter from them saying that they do not consider him their grandchild. As I said, we are LC with them, but my sisters both think I am being overly cruel even though they also see our parents very little. I think my son didn't miss much by not interacting with people that absolutely would have said shitty things about his original parents. Am I the a-hole? My GF, F35, makes much more than me, M39, and it's causing division. What to do? My GF, F35, makes 600K, substantially more than me, M39, at 85K per year. She's in a career where you need a master's. My career is in a good sector with growth potential, but hard to match hers unless I also get a master's. I work 2 jobs and both are at nonprofits, so the pay is less than the for-profit side. She didn't pay for school, so no debt or loans. We both have a lot of savings. Background. She wants to keep financials separate when we get married. I get people will keep money earned before marriage separate and inheritance separate, but I always thought money earned during marriage is joint, and that marriage is coming together of everything. That's how I was brought up and my expectations. However, I'm willing to go along with her wishes and set up a joint account. But even though before marriage it's frustrating, and I'm not sure if I want to live my life like that. She is frugal to the point of it being a character defect. I am more relaxed and of the mindset that money comes and money goes. Enjoy life. I think that if I have to put in 100% if my income to a joint account, it's unfair for her to get to put in 20% and save the rest. I said if I make more, or if we switch places, I'd contribute more, but she says that is easy to say and it wouldn't be true if it actually happened, whatever that means. The situation. Normally when joint income is so high it's a blessing, I would think, but it's causing a lot of friction and resentments. Here are some examples. I hope these examples help explain the situation since I have had such a hard time writing this post. I want 2 kids and she says I don't make enough for 1 kid and that I can't afford to live, let alone raise a child. She keeps referring to it as being able to afford my kid versus our hypothetical kid. I save maybe 20% of my income and some months I break even, but I still am told I shouldn't go to Chipotle for lunch or even use too many paper towels because they are expensive. She also gets really mad when I tip. She puts in $1 for a taxi and I put in 15%. I used to work for tips as a summer job, so it's important. She is so very against the man making less that she wants to split everything 50-50ths, so what I put in she puts in. Not a penny more is a way to hammer home this feeling. She keeps saying I need to look for higher paying jobs, and I should apply to 100s a day like the house is on fire. I do apply just as I have time. I have a weekday job at a non-profit as well as a weekend job. My therapists say I have quality, respectful employment, and I should be proud of what I do. Plus, I work 2 jobs, so I'm not sitting around being lazy. She said the man should be the provider. She wants to buy the house so it's in her name and not both our names and I pay the taxes. But in this scenario, I'm not building any equity. When I suggest splitting the mortgage 50-50ths and both being on the deed, she says she wants to buy a 1mm house out of my price range, which is $700K. When I bring up the $700K house, she says she refuses to live in a poor area. So then the only option is to each own different percentage of the house 60-40ths, and I pay 40% of the mortgage, and she pays 60%. But she says that isn't fair to her because she is taking more risk. But I said you also get more of the upside by owning 60%, or whatever the split ends up being, when we sell it. It's like you invest more in the asset, and you get more ROI when we sell. So the house thing is a standoff. The root of the problem. The income difference is a real point of resentment for her. And she uses terms like, I refuse to be the breadwinner, etc. I said that couples I know, where both partners work, it is never the same income. Unless you have the same job at the same company with the same benefits, it will be different. For example, my job puts 10% of my salary into a 4013B and I have great insurance. Her job makes a lot more but benefits are less. I feel emasculated and worthless and like my jobs don't matter. There is more to marriage than money. Who cooks? Who takes care of the kids? Who does other stuff around the house? How can a marriage be defined by the take-home pay? I know people who are miserable and work all the time and it's toxic. But perhaps, to her point, I am not making enough in this world of high cost of living. We also live in a high-cost blue state. I should make more and I am applying to 125K pay range jobs, but happy to do it slowly and not rush out of a job I like. Some other context. She also thinks she is poor and her parents, while very well off and have 10+ million, are the same way. They will take all the napkins and plastic forks from a restaurant or all the sugar packets from a diner. Or if there is cream and half bring cups and take it all, just to save money on sugar, napkins and stuff. There's being intentional on spending and cost conscious, but also frugal to the point of concern. People can exist at both ends of the spectrum. I feel like they think they are poor like anorexic people think they are fat. I want to have kids and figure out the cost as we go. I mean, college isn't for 20 years. Should I adapt to her ultra frugality and try to make more money, or is this relationship something that isn't going to work due to the income difference? Like I said, I thought it would be a blessing if joint income is so high. Instead, it is just a cluster of fighting, anger, and resentments on all sides. We are seeing a couple therapist for the first time today. So any advice on what to bring up? Is this all a control thing? Thank you for any advice.